I was fortunate enough to catch up with Chris Lang earlier in the week, the outstanding beat writer for the News and Advance, covers the Liberty Flames. We talked Flames football, Big South football, and more. What does this season look like? We'll get a more in-depth preview as we get a little bit closer, but right now here's Chris Lang on the Sports Buffet Podcast.
Always great to have Chris Lang on the Sports Buffet Podcast, outstanding writer for the News in Advance, covers the Liberty Flames like no one else. And Chris, it's getting closer and closer to football season. Big South Media Day, I know, was just a few weeks ago. What did we learn out of that experience, not only for Liberty but for the whole league?
I didn't learn a whole lot that we didn't know already. It's just those things are always just an opportunity to really kind of get to know a little bit about the teams, and it's such a, I try to hit every table and talk to everybody down there. So maybe not every athlete is there, but at least all the coaches. So a lot of times you're just kind of running around with like a chicken with your head cut off sort of thing, trying to gather little bits of information here or there. But I mean, we learned that starting Brook is obviously the favorite in this league this year, and I don't even think it's close. I think they're an absolutely overwhelming favorite. And it's going to take a heck of an effort for somebody to knock them off. They went 6-0 last year, and they lose one running back, replace him with a guy that was the second leading rusher in the Big Ten last year at Iowa. That they have the best backfield, the best quarterback, the best offensive line probably in the league. So it's somebody's going to have to probably score 45 points to beat him, I think, this year.
And when we look at the rest of the league, obviously we'll focus on Liberty with them being the hometown team. First, let's start with the schedule. Is this schedule conducive to a team that Liberty has in terms of, is the non-conference schedule easy enough to get them into conference play but yet challenging at the same time?
It may be actually the toughest non-conference schedule they've played since, at least since I've been on the beat. I mean, every team that they're playing in the non-conference made the postseason last year. Wake Forest went to a bowl game. Concord went to the Division II playoffs. And then Lehigh, Norfolk State, Montana all went to the FCS playoffs, with Lehigh making it to the quarterfinals and Montana making it to the semifinals. So it's an extremely difficult schedule, I'd say. And that stretch of having to go out to Montana and then come back and play a really good Lehigh team, I think is going to be extremely difficult, because it's just a tough trip. I mean, even if you're chartering, there's a 2-hour time difference involved, and it's a long trip back after you play that game against the Montana team. It's kind of a lot of disarray up there themselves, so that'll be an interesting trip for sure.
In terms of what you know so far, has Turner Gill kind of had enough time to get things worked in, or could this be we don't really see results till year 2 or year 3?
I think, I talked to him yesterday, the first practice. He said he was really happy with kind of the retention the players had from the spring. So he thought that they were able to move pretty quickly into really doing some specifics in practice yesterday. So it's not like they were starting from scratch again. So the spring was really helpful. It's just with the quarterback situation and the uncertainty on offense, it's going to be really difficult, I think, for them to hit the ground running unless one of those two guys really comes out and surprises and takes reign of the job. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
Do Danny Rocco players transfer into Turner Gill players, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I don't know if players are players. I don't know if they're that much different. There seems to be a little bit more of a sense of discipline there right now. I don't know if, that's as far as I can tell, but I don't really know if I see him play. I can't see him practice. They've shut everybody out of that, so I don't really know, to be honest with you, on that question.
Yeah, and that is another topic. Obviously, you read Flame fans' message boards and things of that sort. How big of a deal is it closing practice?
It's not. I mean, it's not a big deal to me because they close it to everybody. So it stinks to not be able to kind of get a better feel for things and whatnot, and ask more intelligent questions. But I think it's for them. It's Turner wants to have an opportunity to really to just not have distractions, not have outside people watching
For people who don't know, I mean, at bigger schools, does are practices always closed, or are they open? How does that work?
They're generally, a lot of times they're closed. Virginia Tech closes most of their practices. Virginia will have a few of their practices open that they'll do. Schools like Alabama and whatnot, you won't see anything. I know Auburn, Andy Bitter used to work for us, used to cover Auburn, and they didn't. I think they let you in for about 20 minutes, which is what Turner does here. Is you can go watch the first 15 minutes, but not a lot happens in the first 15 minutes.
Right.
I think it's just a change for the fans, and they're having to get used to it.
Let's talk about some position battles that you see on the horizon. Obviously, we talked about the quarterback position. If I were to give you some Monopoly money, who would be your bet on day one?
That's really hard to tell. I think it's 50-50 completely between Brian Hudson and Josh Woodrum, and one of those two guys can have an opportunity to really separate themselves. Hudson's a strong kid with a strong arm. He's got a little bit of game experience, and he's a little bit older than Josh, who's a redshirt freshman. But Woodrum was a pretty highly recruited guy at Cave Spring, and he was Wake Forest was looking at him. A couple other ACC schools were looking at him. So he's certainly got the talent and the ability to take that job as well. So if I had to totally guess, I would say probably Hudson starts the first game just because of the experience factor. But they're both going to play early on. I think he wants to see what they can do in game situations for sure.
What about some other position battles that you would keep an eye on?
Yeah, the running back's going to be interesting because Aldrakis Allen kind of had a bounce-back year last year and then did not have the best of springs from what I could tell. He was kind of in Gill's doghouse a little bit. He's a guy that's a strong kid, powerful kid, can run the ball north and south pretty well. Sir Chauncey Holloway had a pretty good camp in the spring, and I think he's going to have some opportunities. And they got a couple of freshmen that came in that DJ Abner kid may get a chance to play. The freshmen will certainly have an opportunity to show what they can do and see if they can get in that situation. That's the thing is I just think everything. I mean, as you saw with the offensive line, Stan Herring started 11 games at left tackle last year. They moved him inside to right guard, and because they thought he was, his aggressiveness got him in trouble at left tackle at times, but it's a plus at guard, and so everything's kind of up for grabs. It's a new coaching staff, and I think the one certainly on offense is that Pat Kelly is going to be the number one receiver for sure.
Absolutely. When you lose a lot of what Liberty lost in terms of the receivers, how much do you think Pat Kelly is taking ownership of this group?
Oh, he is. He's a really good leader. He's a good kid. A guy that wants this role. He wants to. He's very happy to represent OU as a leader at this point in his career. He's a senior. He's got a couple of guys out there that Ryan Ferguson showed some things last year in spots, and a guy like Greg Pratt that came here a couple of years ago out of Troy as a running back transfer. He could be the BJ Hayes type, the quick slot receiver sort of guy. So that's certainly a situation worth watching right there.
What about defensively? How many battles are we looking at in terms of true? We don't know who's got the spot.
Not many, to be honest with you. I think that the interior line positions will be interesting because you get a guy like Jabril Fuel that came in that was a junior college transfer who's highly touted, highly regarded. Played well in the spring, but Greg Schuster was there last year, played a lot when Ace Chapman was suspended, and so he's a guy that returns. But they're pretty well set at defensive end, I think. And the linebacker positions, Nick Sigmund is definitely going to start the middle linebacker position. Scott Highland looks like he can get one of those spots. It might be that'll be interesting to see the linebackers because there are a lot of linebackers on the roster for it being a 3-4 defense for so many years. And some guys switched to safety, some guys switched to defensive end. So the playing time battle there will be interesting to watch for sure.
How much do you think Turner Gill will count on his freshmen?
I can't tell that right now, to be honest with you. And I don't know if you will be able to tell until the end in the training camp. It's just they just showed up yesterday for the first time in practice, so I'm not sure if you can answer that question yet. So in about 3 weeks, I might be able to help you a little bit more with that one.
Let me kind of throw this out generically. Do you think Gill has, because I think anytime you bring in a first-year coach, that guy has to make people like Pat Kelly, Scott Hyland, Woodrum, the list goes on, feel like they're his guys, even though they were brought in by the previous regime. Is it going to be a case where you feel that Gill has done or is going to do a good job of that, and the freshmen will play when the freshmen are ready, or the freshmen are going to play because Turner Gill recruited them?
The freshmen will play when they're ready. I mean, he's going to put the best 22 players on the field. That's for certain right there. I don't think there's any sort of he likes the players that are there. He's been here long enough, having a chance to get hired back in December before recruiting started, before the winter workouts really started, gave him an opportunity to get to know the players. And I think there was a little bit of there was some resentment for a couple of weeks, maybe not towards him, but just towards the whole situation for some of the holdovers. But I think a lot of the holdovers saw it as a chance for a fresh start too. That they got a chance to especially guys maybe that weren't getting as much playing time. They got a chance to impress the new coaching staff and kind of start over in that regard. So I don't think you're going to have any issues there for sure.
We haven't played the 2012 season yet, but I've been told that Liberty does have quite the number of verbals already for 2013. Is that a surprise to you?
Yeah, only because you usually don't see a lot of verbals to FCS schools, because guys generally will hold out and wait and see if they're going to get some sort of offer from an FCS school. So that's really the only surprise in that regard. And usually the recruiting starts to heat up more closer to January, February for the FCS schools, and you don't see a lot of guys making early commitments. But clearly, Turner Gill selling something here.
And this is kind of an early question to ask you. Do you think that out of these guys that have committed to Liberty, are any of these FBS players that are just committing to or verbalizing to an FCS school?
That I don't know. I honestly haven't looked too deeply into the guys that have committed. I've been more worried about trying to learn the guys on the team and everything.
Right. I'm kind of looking at that 2016 presidential election, I guess, before we even voted in 2012. So
yeah.
We'll come back to that later on.